Welcome to today's live stream. I'm Arnie Buss, and before I get started today, I have a very special announcement. Normally, I post today with my live stream Thursdays at 3:30 Pacific time, and that's right now, and I will be continuing in just a moment, but I have a very special one tomorrow, which is a Friday at the same time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. I have a very special guest coming on. It's Who is it, you may ask? Well, it's if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, but be sure to tune in tomorrow at 3:30 as well, because I promise you it will absolutely be worth your time. Now, today, I'm going to talk about what I'm calling the relationship triangle. And this is going to be three aspects, three sides, if you will, to communication in any relationship. And they're very important. What's interesting about triangles is that there's something magical about the number three. See three everywhere, and kind of why is that? Just even the triangle is the strongest geometric form. If you kind of look around and look at bridges, for example, like ones that have girders and various things, you'll see that there often consists of many triangles. That's because triangles are extremely strong and the strongest geometric form. Just as with that, there is a triangle for communication in relationships, and they involve the three different ways that we can most effectively interact from our aware, loving heart. Now, coming from our aware, loving heart is probably the single most important part of communication with anybody. How many times have something really positive come out of an interaction where it's coming from a place of pain, a place of anxiety, a place of not really being fully aware, not fully really esteeming yourself, and not fully esteeming the other person. When we focus on disagreements and places where we don't see eye to eye, I mean, how many relationships of all kinds, friendships, intimate relationships, family relationships, how many of these are really become problematic and even, totally break up because we are not in our aware, loving heart? Now, that doesn't mean that every relationship is made in heaven. It doesn't mean that you even necessarily have to stay with that person if that's who you're with. Sometimes the most loving thing, in fact, is to end the relationship if it's not working. I mean, so it's not. I'm not a Pollyanna about this. Not every relationship is absolutely perfect. However, I have to say that in my experience, more often than not, things are not as dire as they may seem. Because so many relationships go through a honeymoon stage, and then following the honeymoon stage, there gets to be a period of disillusionment and even outright agony, as it were. I play violin in my parish, and many times I'm asked to also play for a wedding. So I played for many weddings, and what I've noticed from that and all the weddings that I've ever attended is I have never seen a couple who weren't really in love with each other in that moment, and in that moment weren't totally committed to being together for the rest of their life. In fact, that's what their vows typically would say. So in that moment, they were so in love that they were willing to do that. And yet, how many, a relatively short time later, maybe as early as a few months or maybe a couple of years, all of a sudden, that person who you couldn't think of being without is someone who you can't imagine being with for a minute longer. So what happened? Well, there are many things that happen, but I think one of the things that do happen is that we get out of our, we kind of drop the mask that we had, and we start to show up as more of who we are. So the personality that we put on in order to seem attractive to the other person and to try to put ourselves in the best light of that other person is often something that you can't keep that up forever. And at some point it just has to come off, and more of your real self starts to emerge. And then, the response maybe, who is this person? Well, they're the same person that you fell in love with, or if, even in a friendship. I mean, when you first realize that somebody who you're just feeling a lot of simpatico with, and you just really have a great time with, and then, at some point you just says, who is this jerk? Now, this jerk is the same person that you thought was a great buddy, just a little while ago. We're all the same person. So let's get back to this triangle I was mentioning before. So the base of the triangle is connection. The base of the triangle is in communication is how we connect with each other. And where the connection tends to go off are in these certain types of interactions, certain types of conversations where things just kind of get wonky. Growing up, we don't typically learn the kind of skills necessary to navigate those difficult conversations. And in fact, thanks to this wonderful mentor I've been working with, Callan Rush is her name, and she's helped me identify 5 of these conversational contexts where things can kind of go off the rail. So connection tends to kind of go, is the foundation of any relationship. And when that starts to get a little off, then the foundation of the relationship can just start to shake a little bit. So connecting is the key. And how do we connect in these challenging, difficult conversations, in these different conversational contexts, as I'm now calling them? Well, last week I was talking a little bit about what these 5 are, and I think it bears some repeating. So the first, it seems a bit counterintuitive, and that's when the other person expresses something joyful. And I think, well, that joyful is a good thing. If they're happy, then that's great. But how we respond to that and how we connect with that joy makes all the difference. And so many times, when the other person is all excited, just about something, and our criticism can kind of come in. So again, it's like partners all excited about something, and what do? Do you kind of put a wet blanket over it? Or do you validate their excitement, even if you thought it was a terrible idea? So just, it's counterintuitive that, but many of a conversation that begins with joy can kind of end with a disconnect. And the second conversational context is painful. So when your partner expresses something painful, then, what do they hear? We have the best intentions sometimes, So it's like, my cat died, and what might you say? Well, oh, you'll get over it, or she's in a better place now. I mean, there are so many things that we say that are so well intentioned, and yet they cause that connection to break. They cause that connection to not be totally wonderful. And even when your partner complains, how do you respond to that complaint? Again, it might be about someone else. And this, I was about to park, and this idiot just kind of went in. People are so inconsiderate. Say, well, that's just a minor thing. I mean, don't worry about it. Life is too short. Well, I mean, if something is really bothering you, I mean, think of the time that something like that was really affecting you, and you didn't get validated. And now think of how it feels with your partner if they are expressing something and they don't get validated. So this idea of connection. Now, what is the most effective way to connect? And that's this tracking skill that I talk about. And you hear me talk about endlessly. Why? Because tracking is the foundation of effective communication. And it's the most effective way to connect with the other person. And the more that connection happens, then the more that these conversational contexts that have the potential of disrupting the relationship, of breaking the wonderful energy that you have with the other person, the more effective you are at this tracking skill, the more likely it is that any of these conversational contexts can lead to a strengthening of the relationship rather than a weakening of the relationship. So the first side of the triangle and the base is connection. And if you take away nothing else, take away the fact that tracking is the most effective way to do this. People who've only learned tracking and none of the other skills go a long way towards having relationships that go from not being so great to just really being wonderful. In many respects, that's all you need. And I'm so enthusiastic and passionate about how valuable tracking is and all of these skills that for the next few weeks, I will be offering a free one-on-one relationship tune-up coaching session. There's absolutely no obligation. This is my gift to you. And this is an opportunity to maybe identify parts of your relationship that need help. And again, I talk a lot about communication, but that's also just one aspect of what a relationship is about. There are so many others. Why do I talk about communication so much? Because that is one of the single most things that you can do for your relationship to take it from being somewhat shaky and maybe out of alignment, and basically just kind of give it a tune up and make it just hum again. And even if it's worse than that, maybe if you need an engine overhaul or something like that, again, there are so many ways in which your relationship can be made better, and so many of them start with these communication skills. So connection, that's the one side. So now what if the other? And one of the things that I often hear after talking a lot about tracking and what is tracking, and it's about listening and validating what the other person is, and all that is wonderful. And so what sometimes someone will say, well, okay, that's great, I got this down, but when's my turn? When do I get to say what's going on for me? Because I mean, do I have to sit there and just listen to everything 24/7? When do I get to say my piece? And that's when the second side of the triangle comes in. And that's about expressing to the other person, expressing what's going on for you. See, now tracking is about what's going on for the other person. When you express yourself, you can express your needs, you can express a request for change, or you can express any one of the 5 conversational contexts in a way which comes across as being as connecting more, in fact. In other words, instead of complaining, instead of confronting someone, instead of criticizing them, you can express it as what I call an impact statement. And an impact statement is the most effective way to express your need in such a way that the other person is more open to hear it. And that's a particular skill that takes a bit to learn. It took me a while to really get that. And in many respects, I don't always do it perfectly, as my wife will attest. And the thing is that even if it's imperfect, it still goes much farther and is more effective than just any of the standard usual ways that we tend to interact with each other. In other words, when we express our needs in a way which makes the other person wrong, then it tends to also take your relationship and put it out of alignment. Because if your partner or the person that you're expressing yourself to, if they're not aware of the things like the tracking skill, or even if they are, if in that moment they feel that they can't do it or don't want to do it, then again, the relationship tends to get out of alignment. So what is this impact statement thing? Again, you can find out all about it if you work with me. That's one of the most effective ways to learn all of this. In fact, one person that I've been coaching recently sent me a voicemail, and she was just ecstatic that she was able to apply an impact statement, and it was actually in a work situation, something that had been bothering her for months about a coworker, but she was feeling, kind of anxious about how it would go down because, again, the thing with the coworker, in many respects, you're kind of more stuck with them than you might even be with, with somebody that you're in a relationship with. So this had been bothering her for a long time, and I worked with her a little bit to form an impact statement, and she was able to deliver it, and it produced the kind of change that she was asking, and she said that as a consequence of that, she and this other person actually felt closer. Again, these were colleagues, these were friends, so it was really wonderful there. And then she added that, okay, there was another situation where she, kind of knowing impact statements, she spontaneously came up with one. And again, it just had this magical effect of not only getting the need that she was expressing met, but also the fact that it actually drew her and this other person closer together. So that's the second side of the triangle, and a very key one, because where you express yourself. So in many respects, it's kind of it's like tracking in reverse, so you where you Salwa Saeed, the woman that I learned all of this stuff from, talked about how, well, in tracking, it's like you're holding a mirror up to the other person and really reflecting back to them what their message is. Again, you're not parroting their words, you're getting their message. But then with impact statements, you're turning the mirror around on yourself, and you're getting clear on what it is that is something that you want to change, and you express it in a way, again, from your aware, loving heart. That is so important. And when you do that, and you don't make the other person wrong, and you don't criticize or blame or shame, then there's this amazing opportunity for the other person to make a change for you as a Mamnoon. And Mamnoon is something that we talk about in the Here book a bit. Again, this is something that Selwa talked about, and it's a way of making a change or for the other person, as a gift from them to you. In other words, if the idea of Mamnoon is that if I'm being asked for a change, and it's something that I'm totally okay with, then I can give it as a gift. And the gift is that I now have been given the gift of being able to give a gift to the other person. Now, when here's the interesting difference between giving and receiving gifts, the difference between when we're children and when we're adults. See, when we're children, the biggest joy is getting a gift, so it's at Christmas time, children are all excited, and at birthday, what are my presents? What am I going to get? Interestingly, as adults, we get more joy from giving gifts. I mean, have you ever found the perfect gift for someone that you care about, and you just can't wait for Christmas morning to come around and watch their face when they open it? That's what Mamnoon is all about. Mamnoon is that you are now the one who has received the greater gift for having given the opportunity to give a gift to the other person. And so when we express ourselves with an impact statement in a way which it makes it clear what change we're asking for and how we want our experience to be, without telling the other person what to do or how to do it, then we give them the opportunity of making that change. So when we express ourselves like that, then we are strengthening the relationship by being more authentic, or by showing up, by telling how we are, who we are, and then giving the other person the opportunity of a Mamnoon. And this may all sound very esoteric, and there may be a part of you that's thinking, well, you don't know the people I have to enter. You don't know my partner. This would never work. I have heard that before, and I've also worked with people, and they've been astonished at how effective all of this works. And if you want to learn more, there's a link that you can click, and that will take you to a page where you'll be able to book a free coaching session with myself. Again, this is absolutely free. It's my gift to you. And it's a relationship tune-up session where we can kind of look at your relationship, identify how you want it to be, what kinds of things that would be ideal for it, and even identify what is keeping you from having the relationship of your dreams. Again, this is a relationship tune-up. It's not a dating thing. That's sort of another business. And okay, so the two sides of the triangle we've talked about are the connection and expressing, and that leads to the third, which is relating. You see, when you can connect through tracking by validating and understanding the other person, when you can express yourself, what your needs are to the other person, then there's an opportunity for completely relating with each other. Because sometimes why is there a need that's unmet? Well, it may be that there are certain circumstances that are kind of preventing the other person from completely being able to meet it. Again, not because they don't want to, but again, it's the kind of relationship that you would ideally have is not something codependent where in order to satisfy the needs of the other person, I need to compromise my own. The challenge in relationships is to be a fully authentic and independent person. I mean, an independent, not in the sense of just being an island, but being your own person, not being completely subject to the whims of the other, so that all of the things that you make, all the changes that you make, all of the gifts that you give are ones that you're freely giving of your own complete free will. And because conflicts are inevitable, even with all of this, even if you have two people who are completely coming from their aware, loving heart, there are going to be conflicts. You're going to have differences of opinion, differences of perspective, differences of personality, different ways of approaching everything that arises, whether it's how to make the bed to kind of where to put the dishes, to who to vote for and all that. I mean, if we were all the same, then there would be no need to have any relationships whatsoever. So being able to relate through our differences and navigate all of those basically it's like a dance that we do with each other, because there's always a certain amount of tension, and there's always a certain amount of things that need to be put back into alignment. And so that's the third part of the triangle that just cements it all together and makes it the strongest structure that the world has: to connect, to express, and to relate. And I can help you identify what all of that is about in your relationship. So if you, again, there's a link in the description for this video, and if you click on that, you will go to a place where you can select a time that we can get together, and I can help you with this relationship tune-up. Again, completely free, no obligation, my gift to you. And so until tomorrow, again, just as a reminder, I will be back at 3:30 tomorrow. That's Friday, the 29th of July at 3:30 Pacific time, with another amazing guest. I'm so excited for this guest that I'm going to have tomorrow. So I hope you tune in for that. And so until then, I wish you all the best from my aware, loving heart to yours.